Coming up this morning on the Dattitude podcast, we've been talking all week about how Aaron Glenn is the favorite to become the Saints coach. Yeah, that seems to have shifted. Both on our odds and on social media, they have all seemed to turn more towards Mike McCarthy. Is this real? Or is just this kind of the rope-a-dope? Is this a good thing? Why this shift? We've had great shows to start the year, so with excellent guest. We're not going to stop that now. We're going to keep the streak going. Today, we've got WWL-TV sports director Doug Mouton. He's going to join us to answer our questions, and he'll give a few predictions, not just with the Saints, but he'll give a few predictions on maybe what's going to happen this weekend, because you know that we're going to do the same thing. We've got our Pick'em contest. That's coming up. Gabe is here. UBN's kind of here. He won't be here. He'll be here in spirit and with his keyboard. We got no more time to waste. Let's get this show rolling and have some fun on this Friday morning.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? Ready for some snow, New Orleans? Ready for some snow, Houston? You might get it too. Got to be real now, right? You've been watching the news. You've been watching the weather. I know we don't trust the weather people, but you know what? I'm just saying, on every app I go to, on every channel I go to, I'm seeing this big snowflake on Tuesday. I know up here on the North Shore, talking about highs not getting out of the 30s for 3 straight days. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know what else is going to be fun? You know what else will can keep you warm over the course of the next, 4 or 5 days? Dattitude. Episode number 334, presented by Evangeline Securities. See, I'm so excited. I'm verklempt. For Friday, January 17th, 2024. I don't know what's going on this morning. Got something going on right here. Can't get rid of it. Coffee's not helping. Maybe you can help. I'm your host, Jim Derry. 34 plus years in the New Orleans sports media scene. I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. YouTube page has been growing. We've had, I guess it's because of all the great guests that we've had. We had Mike Detillier last week. We had Duncan this week. We had Larry Holder on Friday. We got Doug Mouton today. I made some good picks last week. Gabe and UBN gave us some entertainment. Gabe and I had a fun little chat the other day. Who knows what it is? But look, if you haven't subscribed to our ever-growing YouTube page, now's the time to do it. If you're watching on Facebook or wherever you're watching, even if you're watching after the fact or listening after the fact, wherever you get your podcast, come find us at Dattitude Pod on YouTube and subscribe if you can. You get in touch with me on X, Jim Derry Jr., email jderry@theadvocate.com. Look, we also do our shorts on YouTube, and I guess that might be the only place, unless we start doing them Instagram. I don't know if you heard the news this morning, but unless TikTok gets sold, it's going bye-bye. What the hell, man? We just started growing on TikTok, and then they're going to take it away. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Apparently, there's an offer to buy TikTok from its Chinese parent company for $20 billion. Maybe I should have got Nick Braden to loan me. Hey, Nick, loan me like 19.9 bill. I'll find the rest of it from somebody else. We'll go in and we'll go buy TikTok. We'll have some fun with it. You want to buy TikTok? Why not? Who's here this morning? Rocky's here. You know that. He thinks McCarthy is the guy. Seems that Aaron Glenn wants the Jets. You're getting ahead of us. That's coming. Gary, good morning, all. Brian S. Steve, good morning. Who Dat Nation? Yep, UBN can't be here. He's got a family emergency. But he says hello. He'll be typing it in. He'll be typing in and defending his picks. I can't wait. Dylan, if it shows it, there it goes. Good morning, Dattitude family. Gary says, I am spot on comparing Peyton and McCarthy's record. Chicago is interested in him also. Chicago, they're gonna be fighting for Ben Johnson, them in Las Vegas. We'll see where that goes. We're gonna get to, if you didn't hear me mention it on Wednesday's show, I'm gonna repeat again the similarities between Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton and why I've been kind of warming up to the thought of Mike McCarthy maybe being the next Saints coach. He doesn't fit any of my, the guidelines that I've been having. The guidelines of, I don't want anyone over the age of 50. I don't want anyone that's ever worked here before. I don't even want anyone who's probably got black and gold in his closet. Yeah, he doesn't fit any of those things. However, again, I'm warming up to him. I don't want to be a hypocrite, but when you start talking about him and Sean Payton, it's hard to ignore how close they are. As Callie says, good morning to me and the Who Dat Nation. Dylan says, looks like Kubiak might be going to Seattle. I mean, I'm not really. Even if the Saints don't get McCarthy, I mean, whether they get Aaron Glenn or Joe Brady or whoever they get, or somebody we're not talking about yet, I got to be honest. I mean, I wasn't that sold on Kubiak. Was he an upgrade over Clipboard Pete? Yeah. But there was so many things. Look, I thought he was great the first 2 games of the season. Really, if you want to go further than that and say he was really good, Atlanta game, Philly game, which they lost, okay. But I don't think he did anything to help develop Spencer Rattler. Now, again, it's small sample size, and I'm not getting into the whole Spencer Rattler thing this morning. I'm just not. I mean, anybody who watched this show more than once knows what I think about Spencer Rattler, but Kubiak didn't do anything to develop him, or Haener for that matter. If you watch Rattler from the first game he played to the last game he played, he wasn't that different. The only thing they did was he tried to make the game plan simpler, and, that worked for a half. I'm just not that impressed with Kubiak, and if Seattle wants him, then okay. Charles Manga says, yay, snow. I don't know how good that is for our old guys. I know my kids are begging for it. I don't know if they're begging for it just so they can have the snow day or they can have the snow. I don't know which one's more important to them. I got to be exciting. I got to be honest, though. I am excited for it. I mean, even as an old man, you kind of become a kid again when you live somewhere where you only see it once every 5 to 8 years. Some people more than that. It snowed up here in 2017, but it did not snow in New Orleans that day. And what I remember about it is it was the same day as state championship games that I was calling in the Dome. So it happened to snow in the morning, so I did get to see it snow. But when I got to the South Shore, it was gone. Yeah, it was gone. It wasn't there on the South Shore. Did not snow in the South Shore. The last time I think it snowed in New Orleans was 2008. So even I can do the math, tell you that was 17 years ago. That's a long time. So Merlin says Bobby and Mike are saying the same thing about McCarthy. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to warm up to it if that's the case. Gabe says the last time it snowed in Houston was 2020. So I kind of remember that. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. Shane Dumas says, I think Aaron Glenn is interested in the Jets, is telling what he thinks of Mickey. I don't. He still talks to some in that locker room. I'm putting money on Joe Brady, Mike McCarthy to the Bears. Maybe, but I think you're wrong about, look, I'm not defending Mickey Loomis. And we're gonna talk to Doug about that this morning. I am not defending Mickey Loomis, but I don't think Aaron Glenn being interested in the Jets has anything to do with Mickey Loomis whatsoever. Gabe and I talked about this the other day, and although we didn't agree that on the hierarchy of the jobs per se, I think we both agree that the Jets is a better job than the Saints, and not necessarily because of, certainly not because of ownership. Their owner sucks too. But you got to look at the skill players that they have there. The skill players for the Jets they're just better. I know you love you some Alvin Kamara. I'm not telling you you're wrong. But if you look at what the Jets have, they have a two-headed monster at running back. And I mean monster. When you talk about Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, both of those guys, and they're both super young. You talk about Garrett Wilson, a receiver, and a pretty decent receiving core. They got a much better offensive line. Again, I apologize for being I don't know what's going on this morning. I might have to bring Gabe on for a minute. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that. I don't think it's because of Charles. Please don't. I'm assuming don't take up for Mickey. I know y'all hate Mickey. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you the way that I think it is on the show. I have always been a guy where, since I started the show 4 years ago, there are some topics that I talk about that I lose listeners as I talk about them. Some of them come back, some of them don't. Some of them I lose subscribers over. I got somebody that said the other day, they left a comment. I don't remember what his name was. They left a comment on Wednesday's show. I'm not a big fan of yours, Jim, but this was an excellent show. I mean, okay. That could change who I am. I'm going to tell you the way that I think that it is. I'm losing listeners right now just talking about this. I don't care. It's who I am. And I think that just like I think coaches and sometimes general managers and certainly quarterbacks get way too much credit when things go right, I also think I'm the same way. I think that sometimes they get way too much hate when they don't go right. You're blaming all this crap on Mickey. Who would you? I mean, nobody wants to blame anybody else but Mickey. You were blaming it on Dennis Allen. Then it's Mickey's fault because he hired Dennis Allen. Well, nobody disliked, I can't say nobody, but very few disliked the Dennis Allen hiring when it happened. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite. As Callie said, it snowed in Mandeville in 2008. Yeah, it snowed in 2009. It ice stormed in 2011 multiple times, by the way. And it snowed in 2017 up here. So definitely more so. William, I'm not sure what you mean if he was that popular, should have hired him by now. I don't know if you mean Aaron Glenn or Mike McCarthy, but they're not going to hire anybody yet. They're going to do their due diligence. Okay. I hear what you're saying. I think you probably mean Aaron Glenn. Paul Parker says Jets have a better overall team and not in cap hell. Look, the good thing is I don't think, and I've said this the other day too, I think you could see the light at the end of the tunnel with Saints cap hell. You could hear Mickey talk about how he knows he needs to get this team out of cap. We've been talking about kicking the can forever. They know they can't kick the can anymore. And it gets better after this year. Brian S. Steve says Braylon Allen can't even legally drink until Monday. Goes to show you how young he is. So, look, there are lots of reasons why things happen. Again, we're going to get into it with Doug in a minute. Saints for Life says, the coaching has been so bad, you got Cam Jordan burying former defensive line coach Todd Grantham. Excuse me. How he didn't want to teach anyone anything or put any work in fulfilled the technique. This was a DA hire. Look, I don't blame it all on Dennis Allen, but I think that the vast majority of the problems that the Saints have had over the past 3 years are Dennis Allen related. Again, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and tell you that he deserves all the credit for the Saints Saints downfall, but he deserves a big chunk of it. So if you're just giving there's only 100% of the pie. You can't give out 200% of the pie. You can't say it's all Dennis Allen, then he's going, and then it's all Mickey Loomis. Now, what I will say that Mickey's fault, what is Mickey's fault? And he didn't want to fire him in midseason when Gail told him to. He should have fired him after last year. Then I would feel better about the whole situation. The Saints would be, in my opinion, would be in a much better situation had they done this last year. Who would they have gotten as coach? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. No. Oh, Charles meant don't talk about Rattler. Okay, yeah. We're not talking about Rattler this morning. I'm not getting into that. I am not getting into that. Sam Robinson says, man, I was so wrong about Sirianni and Campbell that I'm no longer projecting the success of failure of coaches. Whoever they get, I have to roll with as long as it ain't Gruden. I'm going to tell you this, Sam. Those two guys you just mentioned, I know you're praising them right now. I'll tell you this. Those two guys are proof that coaches don't deserve all the credit. Because I think both of those guys, I'm not going to use the word, Gabe. I think both of those guys are lesser than average coaches. I don't know. Anyway, we got some more comments in the queue, and Doug's in the green room. So we're going to get to him very shortly. Before we get to all that, let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. They will always keep you warm. They don't care if it's snowing. They don't care if there's an ice storm out there. They're not going to slip and fall. Hell, after you talk to Evangeline's founding partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt, you might be spending winters in St. Thomas on a beach, drinking whiskey with Doug Mouton. Don't forget about your favorite podcast host when that happens either, because I'd love to visit in January. For you newbies, if you're wondering what we're talking about, well, Evangeline Securities is a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. If that's you or someone you know, it's time to reach out to the wonderful, warm Nick and Ron. They will start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. And from there, you will be well informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. What happens after that? Well, you'll just have to wait until just before we get to Gabe and UBN for the pick'em. But in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Gabe says, fun fact, Todd Grantham is Oklahoma State's new DC. Wow. Didn't know that. Sean says Josiah Anderson was the media source that reported McCarthy probably fourth on the Saints list. Yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I guarantee you he is either one or two on the Saints list. I'm not saying the odds are necessarily right, which we'll talk about in about 90 seconds when I bring Doug on. But they ain't that wrong either, in my opinion, from what I hear through my friends in the grapevine. Just saying. Sean says Mickey would still have DA as coach. Aaron Glenn not coming to Shane. I'm sorry, Shane Dumas. Mickey would still have Dennis Allen as coach. Aaron Glenn is not coming to fix their mess. DA would not still be the coach even if he hadn't fired him mid-season. There is 0.0 doubt that Mickey would have fired Dennis Allen at the end of this. There's no way 5-12 that he's keeping anyone. Anyway, One Smoke says, I blame DA. I'll take anybody over that loser. I hear you, man. I hear you. Douglas says, good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday to you. Devon says, the GM is the problem. He's part of the problem, but no one is the capital THE problem. No one is the problem. There's always, can't say always, a vast majority of the time, there's more than one problem. Just saying. Douglas says it discourages him on how these teams keep hiring these fired coaches. You can't. Belichick left Cleveland. Coaches aren't always bad because they get one. You're talking about McCarthy. I was going to read this before Doug came on, but I'm going to read it. You can't. You're talking about McCarthy, and you don't want. I get you don't want McCarthy, but if you don't like Mike McCarthy, it means you don't like Sean Payton. They're the same coach. And you look at their numbers; they're the same. Oh, you can't go all by numbers. Yeah, you can't go all by numbers when you don't want to go by numbers. Just saying. All right, let's bring him on. Let's get his thoughts before we get into all these numbers. Our friend, we always have so much fun when Doug Mouton is here.
Wait, do we?
Yeah.
I didn't test my mic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
All right. Okay, good. Wow.
Now, we don't have as much fun as when you're running a fantasy baseball draft.
Oh, no. Well, that's much more uptight than Doug Mouton. This is your thing, so I'm just here for the ride.
I can't wait till till March. It's getting close to baseball
So,
draft
did you like my
time.
league enough where you're back in?
Oh, absolutely.
I
Definitely.
got to send that email today about.
I'm back in. I can't wait.
Care about that. Let's move on.
Nobody cares about your fantasy baseball
They
team.
really don't, and I'm okay with that. I don't need them to care.
All right. Well, look, let's get right into. We're going to dive into it. Okay. And I don't even know.
I'm telling you, it's
no one's even really talked about it all that much because they don't pay attention. But interestingly enough, these were the bet odds from betonline.ag last night when I put these slides together. This morning,
those are new odds. I haven't seen those.
This morning, they don't even exist. They took them off their site. So there's so much going on. That leads me to believe someone knows that something's going to happen to make dominoes fall in the next couple of days. Could it be Aaron Glenn going to the Jets? I don't know, because could it be Ben Johnson going to the Raiders? I don't know, but that is going to make dominoes fall, I think. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. That's the only reason why multiple odds come down, because they know that something's going to happen in the next day or two.
Maybe. Yes. You know odds and betting way better than I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about these odds. And I know you can't judge on who's going to be the coach by the odds. Otherwise, we would already.
Some of the odds are at the original at the beginning were just ridiculous.
Yeah, they really were.
They
but
had
now
people near the top who I knew were nowhere near the same.
Nowhere near the same. Exactly. And Cliff, we talked about this last night. Cliff Kingsbury was still on the list, and we basically know that he's not going to get the Saints have basically said it's not going to be him. And he's not going to talk to anyone until the Commanders are done with their playoffs, which will be Saturday about 9:30. That's a whole different story.
That's still a good way to do it. It is a little weird that they're doing interviews a couple of days before their teams play.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I will say this. If the Saints were in the playoffs right now, I wouldn't want all the assistants taking time out this week to do interviews.
Neither would I.
If you flip it around. So I do think the whole process is a little weird. And look, I heard you say a minute ago, like this thing. And look, I don't think the length of the process is a problem. It's probably a good thing. Like, get it right, or at least as right as you think you can. There's no reason to rush it. You don't have to do anything right now. I'm okay with the process playing out over the next, 2 or 3 weeks.
There is one comment that I want to show because he has the right to defend what he said. And Douglas Thornton, by the way, he says, I wasn't talking about a specific coach. I said I thought he was referring to Mike McCarthy, because I know you said the other day, Doug, that Douglas Thornton, that you were not happy about Mike McCarthy. He says he wasn't talking about a specific coach, just fired coaches. How about branching out and trying something different or unproven? That's how great coaches are created. They want unproven. Maybe, but there are a lot of times when there are coaches that are unproven, they fail.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, look, the NBA has much more recycling of head coaches than the NFL does. Like, by the end of this cycle, you're going to see a couple of guys who had been head coaches before get head coaching jobs again, and you're going to see several new guys who have never had head coaching jobs. So I don't think it's too rooted to guys. I mean, look, Mike McCarthy's on the list because he won a Super Bowl. And
right. That's where I was going next.
And he had 3 straight 12-5 seasons. Like, he's not on the list as a failed coach.
He's not a failed coach. He didn't. But he wasn't fired from Dallas.
Even if he was, and you mentioned Bill Belichick, it's the greatest example of a failed coach who then succeeded in his next attempt. There's going to be a bunch of new. Aaron Glenn's going to get a job. There are going to be several new coaches. Ben Johnson's probably going to get a job.
He's going to get a job.
Yeah, there are going to be several new coaches getting a job. So I don't think it's just rooted. I think it's going to be some of each in this cycle, which is what happens every cycle.
All right, well, if you can't see the graphic that I have on the screen, the odds that have changed, if you're listening after the fact, you're listening wherever you get your podcast, which you can do. Dattitude podcast on this Friday morning, presented by Evangeline Securities. Doug Mouton is my guest. Mike McCarthy is now the favorite at -250, which means if you were to bet it, that means you'd have to bet $250 to win 100 or 25 to win 10. Aaron Glenn now even money, not probably, because it has been leaked through social media. Aaron Glenn has not said this publicly, but it has been leaked that he has told people that he would rather, if he's offered both jobs, he would rather go to the Jets than come to the Saints. So that's why the odds most likely have changed. But, Doug, here's my thing, and going back to Mike McCarthy, because today's show is going to pretty much focus on him. We're going to talk a little bit about Mickey Loomis in a little bit. But the thing about Mike McCarthy, And I've been reading on social media, no, we don't want him. He's a washed up bum. He's a failed coach, blah, blah, blah. If you don't like Mike McCarthy, and this is why I've kind of warmed up to the idea, he doesn't follow any of the guidelines. He's not young. He is a retread. I don't want to retread. He has coached here before. So all the guidelines that I was hoping the Saints would follow, he has none of those things. But the reason why I've warmed up to him is this. I'm going to compare him to Sean Payton. I put out a tweet the other day. I read it here on Wednesday's show with Jeff Duncan, but I'm going to read it here with you again for those who didn't hear it, okay? Here you go. Mike McCarthy, born on November 10th, 1963. Sean Payton, born December 29th, 1963. They're 6 weeks apart. Mike McCarthy's record, 174, 112, and 2 in 18 seasons. Sean Payton, 170 and 105 in 17 seasons. Mike McCarthy, 11 seasons with double-digit wins and 11-11 in the playoffs. Sean Payton, 10 seasons with double-digit wins and 9-9 in the playoffs. Mike McCarthy, 4 conference title games, 1 Super Bowl victory. Sean Payton, 3 conference title games, 1 Super Bowl victory. They're both offensive-minded coaches. In my opinion, although they might not have exactly the same personality, McCarthy's probably more of a player's coach than Sean Payton. I think that basically they're the same coach.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize the numbers were that close. I mean, I'm not surprised. And I knew they were the same age because I'm the same age. So I know my little wheelhouse of who's my age. Look, the one thing about Mike McCarthy, and you're obviously, I can tell by your tone, because I know confrontational.
You've known me for a while.
Yeah, like I know when people are arguing with you, you take a different tone when you're arguing back. You take a very confrontational tone when people argue with you.
No, not me.
That's funny. No, I don't mean that as a criticism.
I know. I don't take it as one.
Podcast. Okay. But here's what I find surprising about Mike McCarthy is the level, considering his resume, which is very good. Look, this year things fell apart, and I don't think Dak Prescott's a particularly good quarterback, and I never have. I have never liked Dak Prescott I've never thought he was an elite NFL quarterback. I thought he was a middle of the pack NFL quarterback, and and that's to me his ceiling. They went 12-5, 3 straight years. Now, I know they didn't have a ton of playoff success at all. They went 12-5, 3 straight years until this year. Like, he's had very recent success. And what surprises me about Mike McCarthy is the level of blah about him to the same.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Like, and I'm not saying, look, you like or dislike whoever you want. Like, I'm not saying you should really like this guy, because if you don't, you don't. And it's hard to fix that. But I'm just a little surprised at the level of disinterest. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of people who hate Mike McCarthy. What I just hear is just like, nah. Like, that's the reaction to Mike McCarthy. And
it is.
It surprises me.
But who would fire up? I mean, does Aaron Glenn really fire up everyone? I don't think Aaron Glenn's even.
I will say this.
Maybe more than McCarthy. But
let me give you the Aaron Glenn. Look, I love Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn's the guy to get in this cycle, or for the Saints or whatever. I think Aaron Glenn would be a great fit. I think he'd do a terrific job. I mean, look, the more people you listen to say things like he's the most ready guy to be a head coach of anyone I've ever seen. Like, Aaron Glenn is ready. He like the one thing about Joe Brady, who's third on the list, and I do think, man, the job Joe Brady has done this year has been, or the year and a half, since he became the
youth scares me.
Spectacular. The thing about Joe Brady is you don't know if he's ready. Yeah. Is he ready to take the whole thing? And that's what you don't know. Aaron Glenn is ready. And look, I will say, if Joe Brady got the job, I'm willing to roll the dice. Let's see what happens there. Like, I think that'd be a fun hire.
I agree. I'm not necessarily against it.
I don't know if it'll work, because I don't know if he's ready. And there is a component of, are you ready? But anyway, I think Aaron Glenn's ready. And here's the one thing. Look, here's the one thing about Aaron Glenn. I wouldn't write that off yet. And the thing about him telling
I'm not writing him off. Yeah,
he'd rather go to the Jets. We had actually heard that 3 weeks ago that was out. And I never reported it because I would never report something that I heard someone said about. Like, there's no verifiable evidence of that, although I'm pretty sure it's true, especially now that it's really out there and Aaron Glenn's not arguing against it. But even a few weeks ago when I heard it, I said, well, that makes sense. Look, why he would prefer the Jets, maybe it is the salary cap thing, but maybe it's just something personal. Look, he played there for 7 years. The Jets gave him his first front office job. They made him a scout. Like, he might have just had a great experience and liked New York. It might have nothing to do.
Well, I mean, he played there for 6 years.
Yes, I think it was 7, but either way.
7 years, okay.
Yeah, so he spent a decade there. Like, he might just like it. Like, it might be the salary cap issue absolutely might play a role, but it might not. I mean, all of us make personal decisions, sometimes for personal reasons.
Exactly.
He might just like New York. His family might like New York. Like, he might just. But here's the one point I want to make. The Jets, since Joe Namath won the Super Bowl, have been known to make a lot of bad decisions. And Aaron Glenn saying the Jets are his first choice, that might make the Jets go chase somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, the Jets, or if Aaron Glenn's the best.
Oh, you want to come here? Oh, then
yes,
never mind.
Exactly. You want to come in? No, we want to go someplace else. Like, I'm not sure that
I could see that.
will make the smartest choice, even if it's right in their faces. So what I'm saying is leave open the possibility that the Jets will do something stupid, because the Jets have done a lot of stupid things for 40 years, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So
50 years, really.
Until Aaron Glenn is named head coach of the Jets, he's in the Saints hopper. Don't say just because he'd rather go to the Jets means he goes to the Jets. It does not. So anyway, so that's sort of where
there's an interesting comment here that I kind of want to comment on and talk about for a second. And Shane Dumas saying, stop selling Mike McCarthy, be bold and start new. It's a new day. The fan base doesn't want retreads. You don't want retreads. That doesn't mean the fan base doesn't want retreads. Joe Brady or Deion Sanders Deion Sanders, are you crazy? I would take Dennis Allen back before I take Deion Sanders. That's a whole different story. Be different, not a conservative pick. We want a new regime. Here's the thing.
And look, I understand that opinion.
Though. And that's what I want to talk about.
I don't. I mean, the last time the Saints blew it up, it was enormously successful. And look, I've been saying that for actually, I said it last year that this organization needs a blow up and a restart.
Both of us.
Although, honestly, Mike McCarthy would represent that. And look, I want to say this right off the bat. I am not here selling Mike McCarthy. The blah to Mike McCarthy on my personal list, I have Aaron Glenn as the without question number one. And if it comes down to Joe Brady or Mike McCarthy, look, I would rather Joe Brady just for the fun of it. But yeah, well, I mean, so you don't really have as many skins in the game. I have no skins in the game except that I want to watch a fun football team. Yeah. But I would actually be okay with Mike McCarthy. I can't say I would love the pick. I would get it, and I would be okay with it.
One Smoke says exactly the same thing. Says he wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't mind. I'm with
but
One Smoke.
He would rather Glenn, and I get that.
Me and One Smoke, and I've said this for a long time. Me and One Smoke agree.
All right.
I'm on the same page.
Smoke them if you got them. Sean says, to me, we need a coach who can rebuild a roster. Well, I'm going to tell you this. If that's what you want, then you probably want Mike McCarthy, because the younger the coach, the less input that coach is going to have on personnel that comes here. Joe Brady, if he were to come here, my guess is besides quarterback, he would probably get the say on who he wants as quarterback. But my guess is he wouldn't have say on a lot of the other pieces. Aaron Glenn would have more. He would obviously have a say-so on who his quarterback is, and would have some.
Let me add to that. Look, I think that's a good point. And I wouldn't say Joe Brady would have no say, but I do agree.
Wouldn't have a lot.
And look, that's one of the things that I like about Aaron Glenn is that Aaron Glenn is an alpha. Aaron Glenn's going to walk in and not be told what to do. Joe Brady, you're right, because of the age and because of the inexperience, is going to have to lean on the current management that runs the team a lot more than Aaron Glenn would. Not that, look, it's got to be cooperative to work, no question about it. Yeah. But that's one thing that I like about Aaron Glenn is that he is a definitive alpha that will walk in the. And look, it's the one thing about Dennis Allen that was never right from the start is that he never felt like an alpha. He never felt like the guy.
He isn't an alpha.
He's not. I mean, he's just not the guy in charge of the room. And Aaron Glenn is, in a way that I think would be very positive. And I do think that's an excellent point. If you want to blow up the roster, Joe Brady is without question the third choice out of those three. And for me, tell me if you disagree with this, Jim. I don't, if it's not one of those three, I don't know where it goes. Like, I don't
think there's any way to know.
Beyond that three, right?
Yeah, if there's any, look, I'm just going to throw this out there. If it's not any of these three, I have no idea who it's going to be either. I don't think anyone could possibly have an idea, but I'm going to throw this out there. And everyone I've talked to, I've not talked to you about this, but everyone I've talked to has completely shot me down when I've said this. And I want it to be clear, I'm not endorsing this. Okay. I'm just telling you, would it surprise anyone if this team, you want to think about going out the box, how about someone named Drew Brees? Exactly. But I'm telling you, if you wanted to go outside of the box, I've never even mentioned this on this show before, but it would not. I'm just saying there were odds that had Drew Brees in it at like 10-1. I would not put it out of the question if they didn't get one of the let's say these top three guys these are the three we want. We're going to get one of these three guys. And let's say they don't. And their plans are completely screwed. Like if you're in the draft and you're drafting fourth and you're like, I want one of three guys. There's no way these three guys are going to go 1, 2, 3. And by the way, Shane, I don't care who Drew endorsed. Drew talks out of the side of his mouth all the time. Sorry. Drew doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just going to say, just because Drew endorsed someone, that doesn't mean jack squat. I'm just saying I could see it, and I've been shot down by not quite a dozen people in our business, but multiple people in our business that I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying I saw it in odds. Someone thinks somewhere that he has a chance.
You want me to comment on that?
Yeah, have fun with it. Tell me how wrong I am.
Well, look, for one thing, I don't think he would want the time commitment necessary.
I agree with.
So I don't think he would ever.
But he sure would like. He sure would like the thought of the whole thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Tom Brady wants the thought of being a GM someday.
Yeah, but the GM is not in there 80 hours a week on game week. Every
Should
week.
Be.
He's not designed. It's not the same. You're not looking at the amount of tape or doing those kind of things as a GM. I would not be in favor.
Could you imagine how would we report on that?
I don't know. And look, a huge chunk of the fan base would think it's the greatest thing that ever happened.
I know they would. They would think it's fantastic.
I would,
not everybody. Not most of my family here. I think most of my family would be like, oh, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Some of them would love it.
I don't think I would give that. You said you can never say, and I heard you say this. You can never say always. You can never say never.
That's right.
You can't say those things. But I would give that the most minuscule possibility. And either way, I don't think
that's why, Doug, when I say 0.0, I'm coming with the receipts of why. I mean, I'm just saying you can't say 0.0 with that one.
God, I didn't want to come on this show to talk about that. That's not why I wanted to come on. No, I do not think that would be good for the Saints. I don't think it would be good for
I don't either. It would be bad.
Work. And I don't think it's going to happen. I would say that.
Yeah. Rocky says Drew to the front office in some capacity. Yeah, okay, you take that. I don't think that he wants that because that would. I think that Drew and Sean Payton are a lot alike. That's why they got along so well. No, Drew's a little bit nicer in the grand scheme of things. His personality is maybe a little bit more open to, if you wanted to say hello to someone or have coffee with someone. My opinion.
Than Sean Payton.
Well, Drew wouldn't, he wouldn't say, go write a blog about it, Cat.
I would say this. Sean Payton loosened up. And
he did. He has definitely loosened up.
I would know. Yeah. Towards the last 3 or 4 years. Look, in that off week, we did a Saints, we did a pregame show for the game in London. This is the year in between when he was off. And we got in touch with him and asked him if he'd come on the pregame show and, talk where he is and Saints and all that.
He politely declined.
He was great.
Oh, he did?
He was gracious, and he was wonderful, and it was a terrific 5 minutes, and he was a different guy than he was in the heat of battle, and I get that.
No, and he always was. Like, look, I had the chance to have a sit down. Well, not sit down, but we stood up, so I can't say it was a sit down, but a pretty decent talk with him in the year that he was suspended and he was coaching his son. And I did kind of a lighthearted story about him being a coach of a flag football team and a youth flag football team, and he was definitely a different person than he was when he's up there at the podium after a loss.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna crap on somebody like that anyway. Yeah,
I don't have any problems crapping on anybody. I don't like.
I know you.
I'm a crapper.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Yeah,
in fact, they might call me the crapper. I don't know. Douglas says, "Breeze, nah." Much respect, but nah.
Yeah. I'm with Douglas. God, your audience is like eloquating my thoughts better than me. Me, one smoke, and Douglas. We're like this.
One smoke is look, most of our regulars are out this morning. Silver Gator says Breeze for quarterback coach. Hey,
that's actually now again, Drew Brees is not going to be willing to do that.
No.
But if he did, I think Drew Brees would be a spectacular quarterback coach because Drew Brees was a quarterback who didn't have the greatest natural skills. Now, he had better natural skills than he gets credit for, but sometimes the guys with the greatest skills just say, do what I did. Most major league managers are backup catchers because they had to be smarter. And Drew Brees had to be smarter because he didn't have the greatest natural skills. And I think Drew Brees would have a lot to offer quarterbacks. I think he'd be a great quarterback coach.
Shane says if Drew gets the head coaching job, bet he keeps Rizzi here. By the way, the Broncos lost
The
Broncos lost their special teams coach. Guess where Rizzi's probably? Who's getting a phone call if he haven't got one already?
Yeah,
saying it's probably going to get one.
And look, Rizzi's a terrific special teams coach.
I agree. Yeah.
Rizzi's top third in the league as special teams coach.
No doubt.
And all the numbers back that up. Darren Rizzi's going to get a job super fast, and he might get another head coaching opportunity at some point.
Maybe. Wherever he goes, he'll probably be assistant head coach, which means if something were to happen, he would be the head coach. So it certainly wouldn't shock me if he was an interim coach again someday.
No,
coaching someone who's going to
he's still in his 40s. He's still young by NFL standards.
Is he in his 40s?
I think so. I think he's like 48.
Okay.
You can look that up, but I think that's what he is.
Maybe so. We'll see.
Off the top of my head. Why? He seems older?
He seems closer. I mean, I don't think he's my age, but he seems closer. And I bet Gabe's looking it up right now. He's gonna. So my light's gonna light up in here in any second. He's gonna tell me how old Darren Rizzi is, but he just seems like he's closer to my age. He sure does get fired up like I get fired up. 45, 40. Oh,
45, 50, not even 48.
54.
Oh, is he 54?
54. Okay, so I thought he was closer to my age.
Ages. So the Wikipedia search takes 1 second. All right, 54 is a little older than I thought.
See how things are different than when I was on the cop. Look, back to get off a tangent, why not real quick? When I was an ag clerk back in the day and I was our job to answer the phone, sports times begin, they'd call from the bar. We'd get like 5 calls a night from the bar back in the day before there was Wikipedia and Google. Can you tell me who won the 1947 World Series?
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Once a friend of mine, Bob Christ, who worked at the desk, answered, and same kind of call. Oh, yeah. Can you tell me, do you know who was the MVP of the 1960 NFL championship game? And he said, yes, I do. Thanks for calling. Click.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's where I get my attitude from, just to let everyone know.
Years of
from the 12 years of working on the sports copy desk before I actually.
We don't even have telephones at work anymore. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that. It doesn't surprise me.
In fact, we have a telephone system that runs through our computers. So if you call, in theory, I can. But none of us know how to operate it. So if I can see I'm getting a call, none of us know how to answer it.
I was watching a show from the late 70s last night. It was funny because Quincy didn't want any calls, so he took his phone off the hook, and guy came banging on the door. He goes, "Damn it, you left your damn phone off the hook. You can't even leave your phone off. I guess you could turn it off. You can't even leave your phone.
But I don't know how to answer it anyway.
They can find you. My wife can open her phone and see where I am. She can literally see where I am.
That I know My cell phone is always on. These are work phones. I don't even know what my phone number is at work, but I have one that goes into my computer that I can't answer.
I know 2 phone numbers, mine and my wife's, and that's it. And I barely know my own. All right. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Mickey Loomis. We're going to probably end this segment with one last thought on Mike McCarthy / Aaron Glenn.
Wait, let me ask you one quick question.
Go ahead.
If you had to put them in order for, I guess, 2 different questions. A, most likely to happen.
You're not supposed to put me on the spot of my own show.
No. Yeah, but I want to. I'm curious what you think. 1, 2, 3, most likely to happen, and 1, 2, 3, what you personally would prefer to happen. Go.
It's funny because if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have told you the most likely thing to happen is Aaron Glenn as coach. And I don't want this to sound the wrong way. Some people are going to take this the wrong way. For the love of Pete, don't take this the wrong way. I'm going to tell you, be honest with you, okay? So everyone out there, when I say this, don't take this the wrong way. I would have said Aaron Glenn was the most likely. I would have probably chosen Kellen Moore. And I know that sounds weird. I think Kellen Moore has enough experience. Even though he's young like Joe Brady, I think he has enough experience to be the kind of coach that I want him to be. And he's never coached here. He fills all the requirements that I was asking for. Today, if you ask me, I think the most likely is Mike McCarthy. I would choose Mike McCarthy because I've warmed up to it all. And the more I look at these records that I talked about earlier, I think that it's best for the Saints to go with someone who has experience. And the thing about McCarthy is, I don't think he would be here for longer than, I don't know, he's 63. You got to think 5 to 8 years. 60. He was born in 63. What did I say? Born in
63. Oh, you said
you're right. You're right. He's 61. So you're thinking 5 to 7 years, somewhere along those lines. I think he could turn this team. He's the one I think could turn this team around faster than anyone else. Okay. I think Aaron Glenn is going to be a successful coach wherever he goes. Even if he goes to the Jets, I think he's going to be a successful coach. If he came to New Orleans, I think he will be a successful coach. I just think that Aaron Glenn would take longer to turn this team. I do think he would turn this team around. I just think it would take longer. And I'm old. I don't want to wait that long. I want this team to be turned around faster. Also, McCarthy is like Peyton in the fact that I think they would have all the say-so. And I don't mean some of it. I think he would basically be Sean Payton. He would decide who the personnel is, and Mickey Loomis would basically sit in the room and say, okay, that sounds good, Mike. So that's kind of another reason why I'm warmed up to McCarthy, and I wish it would be McCarthy, because I think he would bring the personnel in. I think he would be great for Derek Carr. Would
you be okay with Joe Brady if it comes to that?
I would be okay with any of the 4 guys in the bottom of our page except for Cliff Kingsbury. I think you said. I think, right. Yeah. So any of the first 4 guys, I'm okay with any of those 4 guys. Cliff Kingsbury, I'm absolutely not okay with Cliff Kingsbury. I think he is a DA wearing offensive clothing. I don't think he'll ever be a successful head coach, in my opinion. I don't think he has what it takes to be a successful head coach. But so I think, there are a lot of people who are negative about where the Saints are going. I think any of these guys who are candidates are going to make for a fine coach. Joe Brady, again, scares me because that means that Mickey and company have all the say-so for the most part in personnel.
I don't know about all,
but he's 35 years old.
No, I'm not disagreeing, but you always deal in these absolutes. You say they're going to have all of it. They're not going to have all
I do. You're right. I do that too much, and Gabe has helped me get away from all that.
No, he hasn't. He has tried to help you.
No, look, he's trying to get. He says I said the word awful to him. I've been calling too many people awful, so now I'm trying to get away. That's the word I've been using the last month to do. So now I'm trying to get away from the word awful. Cliff Kingsbury is not awful. He's below average. Okay, that's the new Jim.
Well, it's my New Year's resolution. I don't think he's actually a real player in this. Kellen Moore is interesting, but I think I can't.
I think he's going to Dallas. I think he's going to end up being the Dallas coach. I really do.
Yeah, that's weird the way that would play out.
They're weird.
I think it's the first 3. Somewhere in that first 3 sure feels like where we're going.
I can't imagine that's not there. It might not be in that order. It might still. I think their order is still Aaron Glenn. I think they still want Aaron Glenn first.
Yeah. And I still think Aaron Glenn is very possible.
Sure it is. Look, I think that the Saints want Aaron Glenn first. I'm not backing off of that. I said that Monday. I said it Wednesday, and I really think that's who they want first. I just think that these reports don't come out if they're not true, that he told someone that he trusts who he shouldn't have trusted that he wants to go to the Jets. And I think there's a reason why that comes out. So
I get that.
And I think the Jets
would think Aaron Glenn, like Mike McCarthy, would own that room. Yeah. I do believe Aaron Glenn would let his opinions be felt, and he would have a legitimate chance to build his team the way he wants to build it. I think he's enough of an alpha that he will run the show in a way that it'll be his show.
Oh, I think Aaron Glenn's going to be an alpha for sure. There's zero doubt. You're not a defensive back in the NFL for over a decade because you're not an alpha. You have to be. Absolutely. My friend Logan Graffia said, real quick, Doug, my friend Logan Graffia says, I believe that if the team hires Joe Brady as head coach, it will be an underrated hire. I know his connections in the coaching staff world might be thin, but at one point, McVay's Rolodex was thin. And look, you can compare him to Sean McVay because Sean McVay was about the same age when the Rams said, you know what, we're going to take a chance on this guy. And you know what? 5 years later, they were going to Super Bowl.
Yeah. And
won the Super Bowl.
But at the same time, and I don't disagree with what Logan said. And hello, Logan. But at the same time, look, every time there's a quarterback who's 5'9", they say, well, Drew Brees was 5'9". It's like, okay, just because you're 5'9" doesn't mean you're Drew Brees. So
Drew Brees was 5'11" and a half. He will never.
My point is the same. So
he will never admit that it wasn't 6 feet.
A similar tree doesn't mean he's going to be Sean McVay. Although, like I said, I would embrace the Joe Brady hire. I think it would be interesting.
I would too.
And fun. But if I had my choice, if I'm the GM, I'm doing whatever I can to talk Aaron Glenn into New Orleans as the place to be.
Well, I will say this, okay? I will if Joe Brady is hired on Monday, okay, whatever, after the Bills win, he says, okay, yeah, I want to come there. Oh, you being since Colorado is 5'7" and stuff.
99% of the quarterbacks under 6 foot never even get to an NFL training camp.
Yeah, I don't think.
But I love seeing college quarterbacks running around at 5'10", and
nobody runs around like Kyler Murray though.
Drew Brees.
Kyler Murray
that every game.
Kyler Murray looks like he's just a big pain in the ass. If you're like trying to chase him, he's like
Kyler
running around like that. He's got a different.
He should be playing center field for the
he would be awesome.
Sacramento A's. He's a first-round draft pick.
I thought you were going to say the Savannah Bananas.
Yes. No. Kyler Murray is a major league talent.
There's no doubt. I don't know if he can hit or not.
He can cover everything.
Can he hit?
He could fly.
He could hit?
Kyler Murray was a first-round draft pick.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It was a first-round draft pick when they didn't know if he was going to even play baseball. He was that good of a prospect.
I did not know that. Gabe says, come on, Doug. They're just, quote unquote, the Athletics.
I know, they're just the Athletics. I know.
No city name.
I know.
Get out of here.
I want to go to a game in Sacramento. I can't imagine like less of a major
Sacramento.
League. Yeah, I know.
I'll go with you. We'll find a time. I'll go with you. We'll take a flight out there and go sometime.
I got a spring training trip coming up in 2 months.
I know, man. And I really look. One of these days, I'm going to dump Endymion, and I'm going to go with you to spring training. Nick Moss, Uncle Big Nick says, you may run like Hayes, but you hit like.
Oh, nice.
We can say it on the show, but I just choose not to. Well, by the way, Bob, the great Bob Uecker died.
That's where Kyler Murray should be. Should be patrolling center field for the Athletics of unknown city.
All right. Yeah. Well, he is Willie Mays Hayes, I guess. That he would be a lot of fun to watch.
He can hit.
Yeah. All right, about 5 more minutes with you, Doug. I want to talk a little bit about Mickey and your thoughts. And look, everybody's on this show except for me. He's completely dumping on Mickey. Okay, I'm trying to take up for him the fact of, look, I'm not taking up for the last couple of years. I guess the last 13 months. I'm not taking up for him because I've been open and honest. I've told you this, that I thought Dennis Allen should have been fired after he apologized to Arthur Smith. So. And what would have been different right now? I don't know what would have been different. I can't answer that question, but just your thoughts on his press conference. And I've heard, I've heard the peanut gallery and all my friends in the peanut gallery talk about how, he has been sort of defiant, I guess is the word, basically saying, tell him to leave. I don't really give a damn what you want. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But just your overall thoughts on where we are with Mickey Loomis right now.
Well, look, I mean, Mickey Loomis built there was no doubt who was running the Saints organization for Sean Payton's 16 years. And Mickey Loomis built the roster and did the things that Sean Payton wanted him to do. And obviously the Saints are digging out of the hole from Sean Payton. And it was a spectacular run that he obviously tried too hard to hold on to and wasn't willing because of the success they had. And I'm talking about even in the last era, the Alvin Kamara's group era that should have gone to another Super Bowl and could have won another Super Bowl. And he held on to that too long. He is defiantly believes in what they do and defiantly optimistic towards what they do in a way that's frustrating when you look at where they actually are. I do think that this hire is going to tell us, an enormous amount about where they're going. I mean, should he retire? I don't know. Yeah,
It's hard for someone to, look. You're inching up on 60. I'm not that far behind, or are you 60 already? Or
yeah,
okay, so you just turned 60. I'm inching up on 60. So it's hard to tell. It would be. I would never tell you when it's time to retire. I don't think anyone. I know I would love to retire before I get to Mickey's age. That's for sure. But I get it at this age. It's hard to tell someone it's time to retire. But look, at some point, you would think, why would you, if you were 68 years old, why would you want to be part of another entire rebuild that at best is going to take 2 to 3 years at best?
Yeah, okay? This year is, 2025 is almost going to be a loss.
It's a loss. It's going to be a lost season. I mean,
you hate to say
realistically.
Look, I will say that singular line, though, is maybe the best endorsement for Joe Brady. Is that you get a year of runway.
You have a long leash.
When you got a long leash, when no one's expecting anything out of 2025, and whatever you can do that looks positive is going to be positive. Yeah. And they're going to take your time. That's the one thing about this job that I think makes it not as unattractive as everyone nationally talks about. Is that you're going to get a leash. And look, there's a lot of things. They're going to have to get out of their heads about certain things. There are things in this organization that you don't know if it's a Sean Payton thing or a Mickey Loomis thing, like the way they look at defensive ends, the way everyone else has these edge rushers that can fly and are actually rushing the passers, and the Saints are still playing 270-pound defensive ends, and the pass rush looks old and stale. Like they have ideas.
Doesn't look old and stale.
Yeah,
it is old and stale.
Yeah. The results are old and stale. Like there are things they're going to have to get out of their own heads to move forward. I don't know how much of that is Mickey and how much of that is still rooted to what Sean Payton wanted back then. And look, Sean Payton was smart enough to know he needed a personal reboot in a different location.
Which you can understand. I just wish he wouldn't have waited until like the middle of January to tell. He should have at least told management in early December. Look, I don't want to tell anybody else, but when this season's over, I'm gonna be done. I'm just
they would have hired Dennis Allen anyway.
I'm not saying they wouldn't, but at least they could have been more prepared and been able to think about it a little bit better. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that. Look, we can all go back to that time. I've said this multiple times in this show. Everyone can go back to that time. The people who hate Dennis Allen, which there are lots of, which is the vast majority. You go back and put yourself in those shoes and in January of 2022, and put yourself in those shoes. And 85% of us was saying Dennis Allen is the logical hire. Yeah, I was willing to give him another chance.
There was not a great uproar.
No, so you can't get that upset about it.
And look, I'll say this about Mickey, and I get everything the fan base has a problem with him, but the record of success is legit.
Yeah.
Obviously not the last couple of years, that's for sure. But there's a long track record of success in this organization since he's been here, and he wants a shot to turn it around.
Well,
if he had said it's time for me to step away, I think that would have been great.
I think his uber positivity and not his, I know people saying his ego, and I even said this, but I think his uber positivity is what's led him to want to be a part of this rebuild, because he wants desperately. He won the Super Bowl. Yeah. He wants desperately to go out on a positive note. Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Super Bowl victory, but he wants to go out with a team that finishes 11-6 and at the bare minimum loses a tight game in the divisional round like they did in 2020.
And the uber positivity is what drives the fan base and included nuts.
Because you're going to think of a guy on however he finishes.
Yeah, it makes you think he doesn't understand where they are when he's uber positive. You know, when he comes out last year and the big press conference is, Tom Landry had these problems, Chuck Knowles started like this. Like, that makes you think he doesn't get it.
Well, he gets it. He's being defined. He's being a jackass.
Right. But that, in that sense, from a PR standpoint, he's his own worst enemy. Like, he's not helping himself by saying that. I think he understands the problems, and if he would just say that, I think.
Well, everyone wants to hear. Yeah, no, I mean, you and I, look, I was an umpire once. Okay, I can tell you that there are multiple occasions though, as an umpire, I realized I screwed up and told the coach I screwed up. And you know what? They get mad, but then they will come up to you inevitably after a game, say, I appreciate you being honest with me. People just want to hear it's okay for you to be say you made a mistake and whatever. Like, this person shouldn't have been coach, or this person, we shouldn't have took this person as we made a bad choice on it. I'm just using Chase Young
in
as
retrospect,
an example.
the way we handled the offensive line in the offseason was horrific.
Correct. Yes. But he wants to finish on a positive note, because he knows, this is just my thinking here, he knows that if he goes out with the Saints finishing at 11-6 and a decent run in the playoffs, and they make it a good, that's what the fans are going to remember. They're not going to remember as much that I hated that SOB and he sucked. So, you know. Anyway, people, boy, you're getting ahead of yourself. Am I going to have live draft coverage in April?
Wow.
We will, but that's a little ways away. And you were asking, by the way, who my favorite baseball team is. Representative Cubs World Series. I was actually there.
And that does affect how Jim drafts in his fantasy baseball league.
I stay away from him. I stay away from the Cubs. I try not to draft Cubs if I can. I really don't. I don't want to be double pissed. All right. Before we let you go, we're going to have our pick'em segment after you go off the show here for the 4 NFL games and college football championship. So I didn't tell you I was going to do this, so I'm putting you on the spot. I just want to get your opinions on, and so we're going to go through them real quick. You don't have to spend a lot of time on them.
Okay.
We're going to go in chronological order. Texans versus Chiefs. The Texans are an 8.5-point dog at the Chiefs tomorrow at 3:30.
Yeah.
That's on CBS, right?
Yeah.
Which one's on? One of them's on CBS.
I know the Sunday afternoon is. I think that one is.
Okay.
So honestly, I worry about the ones that affect our broadcast.
I got you.
That's so early, it doesn't matter on Saturday. Obviously, I mean, everybody likes it. I mean, the Texans limp to the finish line. I like the Chiefs, and I like the Chiefs to win convincingly.
Okay. Oh, that one's on ESPN, ABC.
That was on ESPN. I thought we only had one. We have the big one.
You had the big one. Okay. Well, we know what the big one is. Well, there are two big ones as far as the New Orleans area is concerned.
Oh, sure.
And the other one is this one.
Yeah.
The Washington Commanders at
Cliff Kingsbury.
The Cliff Kingsbury and the Washington Commanders against the Detroit Lions, and the Lions, they got as high as a 9.5-point favorite, or now an 8.5-point favorite, and a ridiculous whopping total of 55.5. You don't see that very often.
No.
What do you think about this game? Jaden Daniels, an 8.5-point underdog.
Yeah, I do like Washington and the points, but I like Detroit to win.
Okay.
Yeah, for all the reasons you'd expect me to say that. I think this Detroit team, and I'm very curious to see him in the next round, but I think this Detroit team's going to be.
It sure would be fun if Jaden Daniels won this game, wouldn't it?
Last week was enormously fun.
Someone asked me earlier who I would like to see in New Orleans. I can tell you that if it were up to me and I could just pick one from the NFC and one from the AFC, I would pick Jaden Daniels because I just think that would be a whole lot of fun. And on the other side, I would pick Kansas City because it would piss everybody off.
Yeah.
So
From New Orleans standpoint, the city of New Orleans, I think, would be best if it was Detroit, because they will bring 40,000 fans, and Buffalo, because I think they would bring 40,000 fans.
Douglas is right. Someone, and Zach mentioned, there are legitimately people rooting for Detroit to win the Super Bowl just so I will have to eat crow on this show. Okay, so that's a whole different story. All right, going to the next one.
Okay.
The Rams versus the Eagles. Eagles 6-point favorites against the Rams, over under 43.5, Sunday at 2 p.m. What do you like there?
Well, look, the Rams are better than people give them credit for. We saw that this past week. I mean, they can run the ball against anybody. But I still like the Eagles at home.
All right. You like the Eagles at home?
Yeah, I like the Eagles at home. I don't know if I get that line, though. That's a lot of points to give the Rams, and I like the Rams team, but I like the Eagles to win.
All right. I have very big thoughts on this game. This is actually my top pick of the entire weekend, but I don't want to this is my top. I'm not going to tell you who I'm picking. We got our pick 'em coming up after, so I can't tell you, but I'll tell it to you.
You can't tell me like it's some trade.
Well, I can tell you, but I can't tell you on the show because then it ruins the pick 'em part of the show.
Oh, okay. I get it.
We got coming up. So I will tell the audience, but I'll tell you later. All right. Anyway, last game is the big one. This one is on CBS Sunday at 5:30. Which, by the way, if you live in New Orleans and you don't know this, you should know this, but a lot of people actually don't because they have like YouTube TV and they don't even they just click on the game. So they don't know. WWL-TV Channel 4, CBS.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Ravens are 1.5-point favorites over the Buffalo Bills.
Wow. Yeah. I like the Bills at home. I don't have any more to go on than that. I think it's an even game. With actually, Las Vegas clearly doesn't see as even because they've got the road team favorite. I like Buffalo largely because it's home. I think they're two even teams, and I can't wait to see this game. I don't
either.
Great opinion why. It's the two MVPs, and you could make a great case for either guy. I love it as a game. I love it just for it
is going to. I would be shocked if this one's not like super fun. If it ends up like, look, the Ravens won this game 35-10 when they played in September, but I would be floored if this is not a one possession game. That's my opinion. Yeah, I will tell you that part of my opinion. So,
and both quarterbacks have something to prove. Both of them.
No doubt.
Both of them are spectacular players in very different ways. They both had amazing seasons. They've been the two best players in the NFL. They both got something to prove. Like this one's just got everything about it is just fun. Like,
so you want to be glued.
You don't want to see that game. Like, then you don't like American football.
You want to be glued to Channel 4 from 5:30 p.m. Sunday until 9
p.m. Look,
I'm
going to be,
and then you don't want to leave because
I'm trying to get all my stuff done as much as I can get done ahead, so that I don't have a lot to do during the 3 hours and 8 minutes of that game.
Yeah, you don't want to be. And then look, after the game is over, you're going to want to watch Doug. Yeah, exactly. So you definitely want to see that. All right, and then lastly, but not leastly, Monday night at 6:30, the CFP championship game. The Ohio State Buckeyes, who have by far been the best team in these playoffs and absolutely deserved. What a run. Some podcast hosts said that they would play pissed off and make a nice run.
Yeah. I
don't know who that is. But anyway, Ohio State is an 8.5-point favorite over Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to like Ohio State. 8.5 is a lot. If you forced me to bet it, if you gave me the theoretical $100, I'd put it on Notre Dame with the
theoretical $100. The old theoretical $100.
But I still like Ohio State. What they have done is just crazy. Because I watched that Michigan game, and I pointed to my TV because I watched it on that TV. I watched that Michigan game, and it was, what Michigan did to Ohio State, and Ohio State. Like, it was one of the worst coached games I've ever seen. Yeah. Ohio State had this advantage on the outsides, but they wanted to play Big Ten football, so they were running up the middle and getting nowhere. And it was crazy how that team has rebounded. Not crazy, but fun and interesting and amazing how that team has rebounded from that horribleness of that Michigan game to be who they are right now, which is the best team in the country.
It is sad.
That said, I'd love to see Notre Dame pull the upset.
You know what? it's weird because I've never rooted for Notre Dame
I never have either until
in
now.
my life.
I have never.
I don't know if it's because I
like
love Marcus Freeman. Yeah, I don't know if it's because of Marcus Freeman or what.
One of the most, I don't know.
He's got. You want to talk about young, energetic coaches you just can't help but root for? That's one of them.
If you don't pull for him, something's wrong. Yeah, exactly.
I agree. You got problems. All right.
People like have a.
Well, there's some people that just hate Notre Dame that much,
and I get that. Believe me, I get that. But
UBN says Rudy was offsides. Only in the movie, not for real. It wasn't really offsides. All right. Anyway, whatever. We'll be talking soon. Again, I told you it would be fun. It's always fun.
No, was it? I don't know. I feel like I didn't bring it.
You didn't have fun?
Oh yeah. I mean, I love doing your show.
Oh, okay.
And I think the coaching search has been fascinating. And I like the process playing out over some time that you can sort of like dive into stuff and think about it and, I don't know, change your own mind. Like the way the process has played out has been, I mean, look, the last time we haven't been through this process in forever. The last time we went through this process, we knew it was Dennis Allen and then it was Dennis Allen. So there really wasn't a process. There hasn't been one since 2006. And you know what? At that point, none of us cared. We were all trying to figure out where to get ice. You know what I mean? Like, it was
prediction. When is this decision going to be made? I want you to make a prediction. Well, when we have our show next Friday at the same time, will the decision have been made yet?
Oh no, I don't think so.
You don't think?
No. I think there's too many interviews are getting pushed back. And you said about dominoes falling. I think the only way it's decided is if you decide to go Mike McCarthy. So I guess there's a possibility, but I don't think they're going to do that. Do you think it will happen?
No, I agree that it won't happen.
I don't think it's going to happen until they get Joe Brady and Aaron Glenn in person, or at least one of them, if it's not Aaron Glenn. And I think both of them might be in the Super Bowl.
So you think it might not happen until after the Super Bowl?
Absolutely might not happen until then. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't been in this process since Mike Ditka, since Jim Haslett, really.
Maybe whoever they choose will be the Rod and Demi and Rabakis. I don't know.
Oh, there you go. That'd be nice.
All right.
Somebody's going to offer him a ride.
We will talk to you soon, and I know baseball's coming up. You can't wait, but we're going to talk to you. We'll try to have you on before the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, if we can. That's Super Bowl week.
If we can. Right, yeah. I get it. Well, even if it's 5 minutes to say hello.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Jim Derry. Pleasure, as always.
See you later.
Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Doug Mouton. No, I'm not kidding. When I'm telling you, it's always fun when he's on. Always fun. You know what else is fun? Pick'ems. But before we get to the pick'em, before we get to Gabe Henderson, before we get to UBN typing what UBN's going to type in, before we get to your thoughts and picks on games, we told you earlier we'll let you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? They don't just go digging in the snow, pull numbers out of ice, melt the ice so we can figure out what the number is, Jack. No, they don't do that. They have a complimentary valuation of your company. And then if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians, Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from established private equity funds from around the world. They will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on that platform. There are very few companies like them in this area, none with their dedication and success, and none with an office. I'm getting verklempt. I'm so excited about this. And none with an office on Poydras Street, right across the street from the Dome. I dare you, go find one. Told you I'm getting excited. They are fully licensed. They are ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important, and that is the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelisecurities.com. You know what time it is. It is time to pick 'em. It is time to show the standings. Gabe says the real Rudy was apparently an ass. All right, well, we got to hear more about this. Was he really an ass? What you heard this?
That's
from?
what I heard. I heard someone talk about.
That hurts my feelings. That's true.
If you look at all, someone said that they've talked to his Notre Dame teammates.
Seems like his dad was an ass in the movie.
Yeah, I think his dad was actually a really nice guy, and I think he was an ass.
So they did role reversal.
I think so. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and find the video, but I saw it.
Wow.
I saw it earlier in the week.
Hurts my feelings.
Yeah, I saw it earlier in the week. Rudy was apparently an asshole.
All right. Well, things you find out. You know, people can meet me. A lot of times people meet me like, dude, that dude's really nice. He seems like a real douche. Anyway, meet people every now and then. Yesterday, I ran into somebody that wanted to come and talk to me for 15 minutes when I'm trying to eat lunch. But hey, it's fun, right? All right, moving on. Pick'em time. Everybody, before we start, take a look at them standings down there. Maximum point total you can have is 24. I got 14. Gabe and UBN had a little rough time.
Yeah, it was a rough week.
UBN says just the opposite for him. They made him like, what a dillhole. All right, rough weeks, but here's your chance to get back. So this week we got 5 games to pick. We did the same thing as last week. We did an average. The average is 3-point pick. So you can pick the rules real quick. The most you can put on a game is 5 points. The least is 1, which means you got to pick something in every game, whether it's a spread or a total. And the average is 3 even. I can figure that out. So 3 times 5 games. The most points you can get this week is 15, which means y'all better do really good this week. But we got picks all over the board this week. We're going to do the same thing that we did last week. UBN is not here, but he is watching. He had a family emergency. So we're going to let him type in whatever he wants to type in. And when it comes up to his turn, we will show it on the screen here.
He sent me a few notes as well, so I'll be reading a few of his notes.
I'm going to let you go first. Your Houston Texans are 8.5-point dogs at Kansas City, over under 41.5. What say you, Gabe Henderson?
Jim, do you know how many of the Chiefs' of their last 10 playoff wins, do you know how many have come by more than 1 score?
Well, I happen to have here, I looked up, I don't know all of them, but I know that since, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Since 2019, they have 2 of them. No, 3 of them. So since 2019, they have 3. Two
of their last 10 dating back to 2020, but if you go back to 19, 3 of them. Yeah.
Because they beat Houston 51-31 in 2019. So, yeah. But anyway, that's why you're taking Houston?
Yeah. I think this will be a close game. I don't know. I have a weird feeling about this one. I still think the Chiefs are going to win. Even though I'm a Texans fan, I'm not that much of a homer. I'm definitely not going to bet against God. But I think the Texans have enough on defense. They're playing with a little bit of swagger. Last time they played, it was an 8-point game, and the Texans were missing a lot of pieces on defense. Right. They get Azeez Al-Shaair back. The Christian Harris is back to full form. I mean, as I mentioned last week was the first time that their front 7 has played together all year, and they looked incredible. So I think they'll keep the Texans in this. I think it'll be around a 1-score game. I still think the Chiefs win, though. I
don't necessarily mean to do a total, but this one, the total kind of stuck out at me. I really look, if I would have had to pick the line one way or the other, it would have been a 1-point pick and not a 2-point pick. So that being said, the reason why I ended up choosing a total is because the total kind of jumped out at me. And we talked about the 1-possession games. Well, that's what I went back and looked. And look, if you go back in time, last year would have been, and it would not have been like the other ones. They beat Miami 26-7 in their first playoff game. But before that, 27-20, 42-21. They had the 51-31 that I was talking about. So Kansas City plays a lot of higher scoring games. And if I had to pick a spread, I would probably take the Texans, but because you said it's really hard to bet against God. The Chiefs have actually done better when they haven't had a week off. And so the bye week actually kind of concerns me, but I like the over 41.5 here. If you think the game's going to end somewhere around the spread, then Houston only needs to score like 17 points for this to go over. I think it goes over because I think Houston scores about 20.
Yeah,
Or
let's
24.
also let's note the fact that the Chiefs stars haven't played since Christmas.
Yeah.
So they've had all this time off, and I get it. It gives them time to be healthy, and obviously Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are great at what they do. I still like them to win this game outright, but I think it'll be closer than people expect. That's if the Texans manage to move the ball on offense. Their receiving depth is really thin.
Yeah.
But
Look,
we'll
Joe
see.
Joe Mixon's probably going to play, but
he is going to play.
He will be limited for sure. He's not going to get the ball 25 times.
I don't think so. I think. Well, if it's a close game, I think he might. But.
All right. UBN says he thinks Mahomes is a little better than Mahomes. I'm confused. He likes the cold weather team to beat the dome team, and it is
better than Herbert.
26 degrees. Herbert. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Mixon. I think it was Aaron Wilson, Texans reporter, said earlier in the week that unless something significant happens over the next few days, it would take a mountain to keep Joe Mixon away from the field.
By the way, if anybody out there, if you would like to make your own predictions, feel free, put it in the comments and we will show it here. But this is the least. We've got a combined 5 points in this game, so none of us are real excited to be betting this game. I don't even know if I'll probably put a little bit on the over. I'm definitely not going to bet a side. So for those of you listening, can't see the screen, I have picked my 2-point pick over 41.5. Gabe's 2-point pick, the Texans plus 8.5. And UBN 1-point pick, Kansas City minus 8.5. All right.
Yeah, and so UBN's note on this game, he wanted me to read this. He said, the Chiefs are 22nd in the league scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They've been really bad, but they were 19th last year. You know why they win? Because Andy Reid still doesn't know what Madden is, and he kicks field goals and likes points.
And he doesn't play Madden football. But Madden.
No, he doesn't.
Lance says... He's batting 840, Patrick Mahomes. It won't be close.
What do you have to say it won't be close, Lance? Because their last 10 games, 8 have been decided by 7 points.
Well, here's the thing. Aunt Mabel's always going to bet on, in a game like this where it's Chiefs versus not the Bills or the Ravens, they're going to bet on the Chiefs. That's who Mabel's going to bet on this game. I don't think there's any doubt. Lance says Kansas City over Houston by 14. You can write it down.
Could I see it? Yeah, I could absolutely see that happening.
CJ Stroud throws 2 picks.
Maybe.
I could definitely see that as well. All right, moving on. Anyway, like we said, a combined 5 points in this game.
Yep.
None of us really love it. All right, speaking of things we don't love, I don't love this one either. Some of y'all do. The Washington Commanders are at the Detroit Lions. I went back and forth on this one. It's my 1-point pick, but it's Uncle Big Nick's 4-point pick. We'll talk about it. I don't know if he gave you any notes on this or not.
Nope.
Uncle Big Nick likes the over 55.5. A whopping 55.5. If he wants to type in a note on this one, we'll read it. But I'm going to come back. I'm never. I can't say never. I'm rarely ever. I mean, someone would have to give me a really good reason to bet an over 55.5 in an NFL game. That seems like a whole lot of picks, a whole lot of points.
I mean, these teams do trend over in 20.
Yeah, but they play a lot of games.
But I know, but this is a lot of points.
Team games too, and I get that they're both have explosive offenses, but this are the kind of games I could see this being at halftime it's 13-6, and you're like, oh crap, UBN also likes the under punts.
I'll tell you what. I think if this game goes over, I think Detroit just absolutely curb stomps them. I think they do most of the scoring.
I agree. And that's why I would, if I were forced to take a total, I would take the under. But anyway, so Uncle Big Nick's got over 55.5. Lance Dobard, Lions over Commanders. Dan goes for it on 4th and goal, the game winner, just to piss me off. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to cover. Would it surprise? Dan Campbell is going to do something to force his team to lose. I don't think it's going to be in this one, is my opinion. UBN says neither team will stop the others. Detroit's D is not that good. They beat up on Darnold.
Detroit's defense is pretty good.
It is pretty good.
They've been banged up all year, but Anzalone's a huge
and Aaron Glenn's got something to prove. All right, your 2-point pick is Detroit minus 8.5. Go ahead.
The Lions have the number 1 scoring offense in the league. They're number 1 in EPA per drive and EPA per play. I think Washington's secondary is awful. and I think the Lions are going to do whatever they want on offense.
Where was Marshall Lattimore last week?
All it takes is one or two stops early in the game for them to just go ahead and run away with this one. I think the Lions win it easily. If you look at their against the spread totals this year, they were the best against the spread team at 12-5. They beat the spread by an average of 7.8 points.
Yeah.
So I like Detroit in this game. I think it's going to be a really awesome environment, and I think they're going to come out playing well.
I went back and forth on this one, and I actually thought I thought it was weird because I really thought this would be a big Mabel game. I thought Mabel would be like 75% on Lions, and it turns out they are on the Lions, but it's not by nearly as much as I thought. It's more like 60 to 62%, depending on where you look. Lions, because a lot of people are just going to bet on the Lions. The spread could be minus 86, and they're still going to bet on the Lions because they're just unrealistic. But here's why, and my 1 point pick, by the way, if you're listening, is Commanders plus 8.5. Here's the reason why I settled on Washington. First, I just don't see Jaden Daniels getting blown out. I have that much faith in this kid to make this an interesting game, and so I had trouble. Again, I was back and forth. Early in the week, I was going to take the Lions no matter what, and as it went on, I kind of like leaned more towards the Commanders, and then I did some research, and I came on this trend. When's the last time the Detroit Lions won a playoff game by more than 8 points?
Has it ever happened?
It has.
Okay.
You weren't 70s? Born.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that long
ago. If you look at Detroit's miserable history, I'm sure it's not hard to find a bunch of
They haven't won
a
playoff game by more than 8 points since they beat the Dallas Cowboys 38-6 on January the 5th, 1992. Before that, the last time that they won by more than 8 points, I wasn't alive. It was December 1957. I was still almost 11 years from existence when they won the NFL championship game. It wasn't even called the Super Bowl yet. It was still 10 years away from being called the Super Bowl. They beat Cleveland. The championship game was in December. Beat Cleveland in December of 1957. I forget what the score was. I had it written down. Doesn't matter.
If you ever want to know how much or how
59
old the
to 14
is and how much it feels like a fever dream, you just said that Detroit beat Cleveland in a championship game.
Exactly. UBN says 1957 was when his dad was born. I wasn't even
my dad was still a year away from being born.
Yeah, my mama was only 15. So there you go. Anyway.
I will say, regardless of the spread, one stat that I saw earlier, since the playoff format changed to 14 teams in 2020, 2021, only one team seeded 6th or lower has ever made the conference championship. So I think it's not a matter of if Detroit wins this game. I think it's a matter of how much they win by.
I would be very surprised that Detroit doesn't win this game.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like by a 6 or 7 than it is by more,
which is fair. And I do want to clarify, me saying Detroit 8.5, that's not a knock on Jaden Daniels at all. I think he's going to perform just fine in this game. I just think all it takes is 1 or 2 stops. I don't see Washington's defense getting many
there's
stops.
a reason why it's my 1 point pick, and I'll go over it one more time for the people who can't see it. The picks on this game: Uncle Big Nick leads the pack, 4 point pick over 55.5. Gabe Henderson 2 point pick, Detroit minus 8.5. My 1 point pick, it's my only 1 point pick, Washington plus 8.5. Lance says, let's see, Daniels' legend grows this weekend. He would take the Tampa Bay defensive line over Detroit right now, and he wasn't rattled. Yeah, I don't think he'll be rattled. I definitely don't think he'll be rattled.
I'll take the Detroit linebacking core. I'll take the Detroit defensive coordinator. I'll take the Detroit secondary.
All of those things. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on. We have got, and you know what?
And let me just make this note while you pull this next one up. An important point is Detroit's got the run game to keep Jaden Daniels off the field. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to run wild in this game.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's easy to say that though. They've been rolling so much. They're due for a mini letdown. And again, I don't think it's going to be a letdown enough to lose. I would be very surprised if they lost the game.
Because they lost a few weeks ago.
Well, I think that they haven't lost in a little while now. It's been a little bit.
They lost like 4 or 5 weeks ago to Buffalo.
Okay. Well, I would be surprised they lost here. And I think the Dan Campbell, although I would get a kick out if they lost here, you're not going to be able to. Our next show is not till Wednesday because we're taking Monday off for MLK Day. But I guarantee you, unless the Saints hire a coach, by the way, if the Saints hire a coach before then we'll have the show. But you won't be able to get the grin off my face if Dan Campbell loses this game. I'm just saying.
It'll just be an hour of you laughing into the microphone.
Absolutely. We probably won't have a lot of viewers because I will laugh my ass off and I will call Randall personally. I'll find his phone number somewhere and I will find a way to get a hold of him. All right. We told you our picks. Time to move on. The next batch of picks. The Los Angeles Rams are 6-point underdogs going to Philly. It is my 5-point pick. It is by far the one I feel most about. And look, if you've been watching this show, you know I've been high on the Rams. Okay. That being said, this is the absolute worst matchup in the playoffs. If you could have picked the team that the Rams don't want to play in the playoffs, I don't think you could have picked the worst team than Philly. There's no question the Rams would have been much better off if the Bucs had won the game. I think the Rams could have actually beaten Detroit because I think they match up fairly well with Detroit. However, they don't match up well with the Eagles at all. And it's not just because the Eagles beat the holy hell out of them 37-20 on November 24th. The Rams are 21st in rushing defense. Saquon and Jalen Hurts are going to run all over this team. And I get how well the Rams have played defensively. But look, I don't put a whole lot of stock in Minnesota because I told you Sam Darnold was going to turn back into Sam Darnold. I think Philadelphia, I really think the Eagles are going to be the team that comes out of the NFC and goes to the Super Bowl. And I don't necessarily think they roll over Detroit, but I think it's going to be a really fantastically fun NFC Championship game to watch between two horrendous football coaches who do stupid things but have great football players. Here, a great football coach is going to lose to a really bad one because I think the Eagles' talent is just that much more than the Rams. And again, I think Saquon Barkley has a field day. Philadelphia -6.
Did you see the little chart? I don't know. It was one of the team's local outlets. They had a chart comparing the advantages that either side had, and the coaching advantage was just slightly in LA's favor.
That's
and whoever made it got absolutely torn to shreds.
It's not even
because
close.
McVay is 5 times the coach that Nick Sirianni
5 times.
is.
That's being super nice.
Yeah.
It's probably more than 2. But again, I think that Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and even, we're not even talking about the last time they played, by the way, which was November 24th. I'll tell you about the 37-20 win. The Eagles rushed for 315 yards against the Rams. And I know the Rams were a little banged up, but 315 yards rushing, that's a whole lot, Gabe.
Yeah. Earlier in the week and before, when we talked about this game, my mind was always Philadelphia to cover. I saw something earlier in the week that changed my mind. I don't remember what it was for the life of me. But here's a few points as to why I like Los Angeles in this game. They had 11 sacks on Minnesota on Monday night. Jalen Hurts, you talk about people turning into a pumpkin. Jalen Hurts turns into a pumpkin when he faces heavy pressure. I mean, that's why Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers have been so successful against him. Is
Jalen
because
Hurts
they just
almost
throw the
won
book
the
at him.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, you could actually make arguments that he should have won.
Matthew Stafford
the Super
has
Bowl.
won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know. I'm not taking anything away from Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford also had a much better team. He also had Aaron Donald on the other side of the ball.
Well, let's not discount those Philly teams. Those Philly teams are super talented. Listen, I don't feel super strongly about this game, but I do think the one thing that Los Angeles will be licking its chops over is Nakobe Dean's injured.
Yeah.
And Philly's defense is not the same without Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And I just think the offensive issues that we saw from Philly, especially in the passing game, something worries me about that. I still think Philly wins this game. I just think it's a close one. I think Saquon is ultimately the difference maker, though. I think that's why the Eagles win. But if you look at the advantages on paper, I just think Los Angeles will like this matchup more than they did when they played a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and if you look, another problem that I have with people, I think there's too many. And I'm not saying you, Gabe, necessarily, or even Uncle Big Nick, who both of y'all have the Rams. Mm-hmm. You have them as your 3-point pick. Uncle Big Nick has it as his 2-point pick. But I think there's so much, especially in the playoffs, you got so much recency bias. And it's hard.
100%.
It's hard not to watch that game Monday. And we didn't even talk about one extra day off for Philly over the Rams, and the Rams having to travel across country with all the distractions that they're going. I think that's gonna catch up to them as well. We'll see, but recency bias plays so much as a part of of a spread. Had the Rams just kind of squeaked by Minnesota, this probably would have been a 7 or maybe even a 7.5 point line, but instead it was 6. So I just think that plays a part. UBN again, who it's his 2-point pick, Rams +6. He says the Rams team is scary right now. Philly didn't look impressive last week. I disagree. I thought they did look impressive. They played a really good Green Bay team, in my opinion, last week. And I think the first game against Philly gives McVay the edge. There's no question McVay's the better coach. I don't think anyone's 100%. Denying that. And Philly wins by a field goal. Maybe I could be proven wrong. I got a 5-point pick wrong last week. It's the reason why I got 14 and not 17 or 18. But I just think that this is just a no-brainer to me. Again, I don't know why. And Lance says, by the way, close game benefits, but believe McVay benefits from playing them before. He got his ass whipped. I don't think anybody benefits from getting their ass whipped. That's just me.
Oh, no. I mean, I think.
But he also says, hold on, real quick. He also says he keeps Saquon off the field. How's he going to do that?
Running the ball with Kyron Williams, which is really what they've turned to this year. A lot of people like to talk about Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's not been great this year. It's really their running game that's been good. And with Nakobe Dean out, I think they will be able to run the ball a little more freely and keep Saquon on the sideline just a little bit more.
Kyron Williams in the last game, he wasn't bad. He wasn't great, but he rushed 16 times for 72 yards and a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Matt Stafford was 24-36 for 243 and 2 touchdowns. The problem was, I think he got sacked. Let's see, he got sacked 1, 2, 3, 5 times.
Yeah.
And they had 8, and the Eagles had 8 tackles for loss. So there you go. Anyway, all right, moving on. We gotta get going. But again, for those of you listening to the podcast and can't see the graphic, I will reread everything. It's my 5-point pick. Philadelphia -6 over the Rams. Gabe's his 3-point pick. Rams +6. And Uncle Big Nick. Rams +6 is Gabe's 3-point. Uncle Big Nick 2-point pick. Rams +6. All right, moving on. The big one, the fun one. The Buffalo Bills are hosting the Baltimore Ravens, and someone is going to have to explain to me, and since y'all are both on the Ravens and Uncle Big Nick's got us his 5-point pick, I don't understand this line at all. It makes 0.0 sense. The Baltimore Ravens are favored on the road at Baltimore by 1.5 points. And you go first because I don't have Uncle Big Nick's comments on it. They should be. First of all, hold on. It's one thing to think that Baltimore's going to win this game. And it's an opinion, and you go through and you make your pick or whatever. But it makes 0.0 sense. If you do power ratings, okay, this is all about the books, and I'm telling you right now what this is, and I'm going to tell you why it's happened like this. The power ratings will tell you that these two teams are at worst. Buffalo's probably should be a little bit higher on most people's power rankings, but in the books' power rankings, they're about the same, which tells you that the Bills at the bare minimum should be a 2-point favorite. So why the 3.5-point swing? Because people love Lamar more than they love Josh Allen. You can shake your head no until the cows come home. That is absolutely what is going on here. And that's why Buffalo, they're afraid that they made this Buffalo -1.5, which really in the grand scheme of things.
They were to open up.
Well, it doesn't. No, it wasn't. It opened up.
Yeah, it was. It opened up at Buffalo -1.5.
The line you read before they played the games were 1.5. When it came out on Monday, when I looked Monday, this hasn't moved. This hasn't moved. Like when I looked Monday and I started putting stuff together, it might have been Sunday night and switched, but Monday morning it was 1.5 Baltimore. So anyway, in the grand scheme of things,
I've got it right here.
DraftKings, it was -1.5 Baltimore on Monday.
It opened up at BetMGM -1, -1.5 for Buffalo at DraftKings on 1/12 at 10:54 p.m. was when the line was put up
on Sunday night.
Yep, opened up Buffalo -1.5.
Like I said, Monday morning it was -1.5.
I'm just telling you what it opened up as.
I don't care. I don't look at it on Sunday. I'm telling you what it was on Monday morning when I did my first look. However, in the grand scheme of things, there's not much difference between 1.5 one way or the other, because the chances of this being a 1-point game either way is what, 10%? I mean, so basically you're bet in the grand scheme of things, you're betting a money line. So it's all about optics and who the books want you to bet on. And they want you to bet on Buffalo. I mean, they want you to bet on Baltimore. But go ahead. Go ahead, Gabe. I'm interested to hear your reasoning, because we're going to get to Uncle Big next. But go ahead. Tell me your reasoning. Because, I mean, whether you agree with the spread or not agree with the spread, I want to hear from Baltimore pickers.
This game, it's going to snow, which makes it
I thought it wasn't going to snow.
I believe it is. That could have changed, but last time I checked, it was going to snow.
Okay.
And I think...
Yeah. Precipitable, 20% chance. Got a 20% chance. But it's going to be colder than what I had seen before. It's going to be 17 degrees. That's super cold.
I'll look it up officially at Orchard Park here in a little bit. But I've got... So, do you know what happens to Derrick Henry's yards per carry as the season goes on?
I guess they get better.
They get much better. He starts... His average in the first month of the season is about 3.9 yards per carry, and it's north of 5 in December and January. Derrick Henry is in full swing. And I believe with snow, last time I checked, when I made this pick, there was supposed to be snow. I think Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are going to run all over Buffalo's 12th rated rush defense. I don't think... Let's put this out there. The Ravens have the number 1 rush defense in the league. And I think if you stop James Cook... you're forcing Josh Allen to throw the ball out. And the Ravens secondary has gotten a lot better throughout the year. The Ravens outmatched them the last time they played. I think the Ravens have only gotten stronger. And that's not to say that Buffalo hasn't either. Buffalo is a much different team than the one we saw earlier in the season. I just think Derrick Henry is a difference maker. And you can cite all the records you want about Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. He's never had Derrick Henry before. And other than Saquon Barkley...
it's different this time.
Yeah, I think it is different this time. I really do. Derrick Henry's a difference maker. Other than Saquon Barkley, he's the best running back in the league this season.
Here's the thing, and look, there's nothing bad about this number that I'm about to throw out there, but it kind of goes to what you're talking about. Derrick Henry in the playoffs, and I'm going to take out last week, okay? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. No, I'm not saying that. It doesn't even improve the average all that much, but in the grand scheme of things, before he got to Baltimore, he averaged in a playoff game 104.5 yards per game. Now, there's nothing to sneeze at. That's a good number. But he also has had games where he's rushed for 40 yards and another game where he rushed for 33 yards in the playoffs. So I don't know that you know which Derrick Henry you're going to get. I'm not discounting anything that you just said. I think I agree with everything you just said, except the one thing that I don't agree with, and it's why it's my 4-point pick and I got the Bills. Because the Bills at home, I don't care. It's until you show me. It's the reason why we don't bet against God in the playoffs, right? It's the reason why I might not necessarily bet on Kansas City, but I am not betting against Kansas City until they prove me wrong. Okay. I know everybody loves Lamar, and most people are rooting for him to finally get that championship. The same reason why they root against the Lions. People would love it if it's Lions or Ravens, because then I'm going to be wrong some kind of way. But until I'm wrong, I can't bet against what I've been saying for the last 6 years. I still believe that Lamar Jackson is never going to win a Super Bowl, and that this isn't the Super Bowl, but he's never won 2 playoff games in a row. And until he does that, until he actually goes out there and proves me wrong, he was supposed to do it last year. He didn't do it. He's got Derrick Henry this year. It's got to be different. It doesn't have to be different. Until he proves me wrong and he can win on the road in a big game like this, I don't care what the score was the first time they played. It's the playoffs. It's different.
It is different. And similar to what UBN is saying, is those numbers were Derrick Henry at the Tennessee Titans.
Who gives a shit?
No, here's the thing.
It's the player. Who cares?
That
was
a
really good football team he played. He was on. They were the top seed when he rushed for 40 yards. They were top seed. in the playoffs. They got the
yes,
play
and do you
games
know
at
why
home.
he only rushed for 40 yards? It's because teams could throw everything they had at stopping him and force Ryan Tannehill to throw the football.
I'm going to force Lamar Jackson to throw the football in this
No,
game.
you're not.
Yes, I am.
Because if you
Lamar
try and
Jackson's going to run the football, blah, blah, blah. I've heard it all before. I've heard it's no
not
different.
with Derrick Henry. It is different. Because here's the thing. If you try and stop Derrick Henry, oh, look, you've also got to stop the all-time leading rushing quarterback in NFL history. It's a two-headed monster. It's in the snow. Baltimore is going to run circles around a mediocre Buffalo rush defense.
Look at the standings, boys and girls. Just saying. Last week, y'all had all the excuses and all the
Look at
reasons.
the standings from the season. I was the best one.
The season. When we're all against each other, when I'm on one side and y'all two are on the same side, I know who's right. Me.
I won best bets last year when I was actually involved in it, or big bucks.
I'm talking about when you and Uncle Big Nick are on the same side, y'all are inevitably wrong.
That's fine.
Just saying.
We'll see.
Show some more of Uncle Big Nick's comments because he didn't get enough. This is his 5-point pick, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He says Derrick Henry makes the difference for the defensive line for Buffalo is too small to handle Baltimore. It's been proven. Only person you have to worry about on Buffalo is Josh Allen. That's absurd.
I think. I mean, you've got to stop James Cook, and you're looking to the number one rush defense in the league to do that. So,
okay. Well, first of all, Josh Allen's not the only person you have to worry about when they went 14-3. Much improved defense on Baltimore's side will shut them down. Again, heard that before. And he also says, think about the Chiefs. They get Houston, and whoever wins this war, it's good to be the Chiefs. Congrats to the 3-time Super Bowl champs. All right. Well, to review, Uncle Big Nick, I'll read this one. You can leave it up. Uncle Big Nick, 5-point pick, Baltimore -1.5. Gabe, 4-point pick, Baltimore -1.5. I went back and forth between 3 and 4. And since you can't do 3.5, I settled on 4 and took 1 from another one. UBN also says this Baltimore team has much more to worry about than that on that Tennessee team that you just had to stop Derrick Henry.
He also said this.
Shut up. We bet Lamar last week. You didn't. I didn't bet on it at all.
Didn't you have Pittsburgh +8.5?
I didn't bet on
whatever it was as your pick. No, but as your pick.
I think that was a 1-point pick or a 2-point. I don't know, whatever it was. I didn't bet on that game.
UBN also wanted me. UBN also wanted me to make this note. No matter who wins this game, the quarterback will lose because the narrative will be, oh, Lamar can't win in the playoffs, or oh, look, Allen is good, but he can't lead them to a Super Bowl, which I agree with.
By the way, he's saying no, not this one. Hold on. I hate Lamar so much. I don't hate Lamar at all. I actually like Lamar. I think he's fun to watch. I don't hate him. But just because I say someone can't do something doesn't mean I hate them. I don't dislike Dan Campbell. I think I'd love to go hang out with Dan Campbell and have a beer with him. I just think he's not a good coach. Doesn't mean anything that I don't like someone. I love when somebody says you hate. I don't hate anyone. Well, I can't say that. There are people I hate. Lamar Jackson ain't one of them, I promise. Lance says this is why he loves the show. West Bank and Derry comes out and will not budge. Makes you homesick. I don't know. If you make a really good point, you might budge me. You've budged me before, Gabe.
I have.
I've actually told you. I don't remember what it was. What was it about when I told you a couple of weeks ago? You were right and I was wrong. What was that about?
I don't remember. Which speaking
you
of
remember
that,
me saying that though, right?
Yeah, I do. Speaking of that, I sat down with a few buddies of mine last night and we talked about, and we're not going to talk about this now because it's a topic for a later show. Yeah. We talked about the Chris Olave comment and we came up with a list of 21 receivers who are definitively better than him.
Oh Lord,
and another 8 who could be better than him.
I can't wait. All right, so we have reviewed the picks. All right, it's time to go move on because we got to end the show. It's way too long. I've already talked too much. I said hour 45 is our limit. We're an hour 48. The college football playoff championship game Monday night at 6:30. Uncle Big Nick's the only one who has taken Notre Dame +8.5. Gabe and I are both taking Ohio State. It's Gabe's 4-point pick, which is the highest of the three of us. I'll let you go first.
I should have made this my 5-point pick.
Okay.
Ohio State has played the number 1, the number 3, and the number 7 teams in the nation so far since losing to Michigan. They've won by an average of 19.6 points per game. Not only that, So these are some stats from Brett McMurphy that he's thrown out. Each of the last 6 college football playoff title games have been decided by at least 15 points with an average winning margin of 28 points. Obviously, that's skewed a little heavily because of the Georgia game, but 15 points on average, or at least 15 points, is not something to just stick your nose up at.
Right.
Only 3 times in the 26 BCS/college football playoff title games since 1998 did the winning team not cover the spread. Underdogs pulled off an upset 9 times, while favorites are 14-3 against the spread. Ohio State is an 8 to 8.5 point favorite, depending on where you look. And not only all of that, here's what I think. I mean, odds makers are showing us here that they expect this to be a 2-score game. And if Notre Dame goes down 2 scores, I don't see a real avenue back against the number 1 scoring defense in the country. Because if you look at the explosive players, Jeremiah Love is fantastic. He's a great running back.
Riley
He's
Leonard
banged
has
up
not
right
been that good.
Riley Leonard's only thrown for like 2,200 yards.
He has not been that good.
And you ready for this? Notre Dame doesn't have a single 500-yard receiver on that team.
Yeah. If Notre Dame wins, the game's going to be under. So,
100%.
My advice to you is, if you like Notre Dame in this game, I think you're much better off taking the under. That way you can avoid, you kind of got a back way to win. Look, it could happen, and I've been wrong before, but I don't see any avenue that Notre Dame stays within 8.5 and it's over. I just don't.
Agreed.
I don't.
Notre Dame will not score at the rate that Ohio State can.
So I think you're better off.
Simply won't.
You're better off taking an under if you like Notre Dame. All right, I'm going to go next. I'm on the same side as Gabe here. It's my 3-point pick. So I wouldn't say I'm on the fence, but I kind of let facts dictate where I went with this one. Again, facts don't always predict what happens next in trends or whatever. But look, I said in the beginning, I said in August when Garland Gillen asked me on the Final Bet show, who did I like for the national championship game? And I said it was either Texas or Ohio State. That was back in August. And they happened to play each other in the playoffs. And I said last week, look, we all knew. I think we all agreed, even Nick. I mean, I don't think he thinks Notre Dame's going to win the game, but putting words in his mouth. But I think we all agreed that the Ohio State-Texas winner was going to win the national championship. And so to kind of go along with Gabe said about trends and betting lines and underdogs not winning this game, there hasn't been a national championship to finish within 1 possession since 2018 when Alabama beat Georgia in overtime. We all remember that game. So that's 7 years ago. So I don't see why this one's going to be any different. I just don't think it's going to be a 1-possession game. I don't like the way Notre Dame played on offense. As much as I love what Marcus Freeman has done at Notre Dame, I just don't see how they keep it close. I think Ohio State, and I don't think they score a ton of points, so I actually still kind of like the under. I think it's kind of like a 27-10 game, or maybe 27-13 or somewhere along those. Anyway, I don't see how it gets to 46.5. That's my opinion, unless Ohio State just runs away with it. Nick says, let's go back to work. Too many points. He likes the Notre Dame defense to keep it a little close. That's all he has. It's his 3-point pick. Lance says, Notre Dame with nothing to lose, motivated, going in bag early. If they're successful, they win. I think they'll reach into their bag of tricks. I agree. I don't think they'll be successful, but I think they will. Kind of reminds them of the Ohio State-Michigan game. Except Michigan is not as good as Notre Dame. Don't get me wrong, but Michigan's in Ohio State's head. Remember when everybody wanted to fire Ryan Day? CC Broom says Gabe kind of looks like a younger version of Jim. I could see that. Kind
of act like it too.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he's not as stubborn as I am when he gets to my age. I'll be gone by then, so I won't know.
I can be stubborn depending on some of the.
All right, final thoughts before we say goodnight. Good night, Gracie. You don't even know what that means. Go ahead.
No, I don't. I looking back at some of my picks, I wish I would have changed the point totals, but that's okay. I'll roll with them. If my Texans can shock the world, I'll be really happy.
That would be fun. I don't think I would be really happy because then I'd have to hear a lot of smack because the Texans aren't beating either Buffalo or Baltimore. They're just not. So
well, they did beat Buffalo earlier in the year, so I don't think they'll have to worry about. I don't think they have to worry about Buffalo if they do the impossible. But that's just me.
That ain't happening. I want some fun though. I will say this. I know I said I would be surprised about a lot of different things. Here's another thing I'll be surprised at. If one of the 3 games, now Baltimore, Buffalo's a toss-up. I'm not going to be surprised if Baltimore wins. I mean, just because I picked Buffalo, I won't be surprised if Lamar Jackson wins. I just don't think he's gonna. But the other 3 games, I mean, we're all going to be surprised if the favorites don't win there, right? But I tell you what, I just had this feeling. One of the three, there's going to be an upset there. There's going to be a major upset this weekend. I'd hardly ever be surprised if there isn't. Yeah.
So who would? Okay, on that note, who is your likeliest team to pull off an upset?
If I gotta pick one, I know this is gonna sound strange, but I'd pick the Commanders.
Jim.
Oh, Dreadhead. These assholes don't know football. Then why are you watching?
Hey, Sylvester, you're turned into our show. No one's watching yours.
You see this? You see this right here? It says Dattitude with Jim Derry. Anyway, final thoughts, sir. We got to move on.
Final thought is, you can say you disagree with my picks all you want, but to say I didn't
disagree with all of
is
them.
great. No, not you. I'm talking more to Sylvester. I'll call him out. Sylvester Dreadhead Banks. This is directed at you.
You've been around me too long, my friend.
Directed at you. You can say what you want about my picks. Sometimes my picks are good, sometimes they're bad. I have trends, numbers, gut feelings to back up my picks. But to say that I don't know football is kind of crazy.
I feel bad because I really think that I'm leading to the delinquency of a juvenile. I mean, I'm turning you into.
Oh, I've always had fun. I've always had fun messing with trolls. There's nothing like silencing people.
I don't want you to turn into me. It's not someone you want to turn into.
No, I'm more easily wound up in certain situations.
All right. Well, we can wind each other up next week. I'll talk to you Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, time to move on. I'm going to finish up with the Saints for just a minute. It's been a fun show. It really has. I keep saying I'm going to shorten the length of the show, but I keep looking at people who keep watching and while we're on, so it's hard for me to cut it down. It's also hurting my superiors look at the percent. They don't just look at how many people watch the show. They look at, I got told this in my last review. You're doing really well because I shouldn't do that because if he's listening, I don't mean that my superior sounds like that, but just so you can distinguish between me and my superior, I'll talk like that. You're doing really well because you have 39% retention throughout a show, which apparently is really good. I didn't know that was really good. To me, that kind of sucks if you only watch 39% of the show or listen to it. But so in the grand scheme of things, I should probably go shorter because it's way more likely that someone's going to stick through a 45-minute show than they will through a 2-hour show, which I don't mean to do. Sometimes I can't help myself. Thank you, S. Callie. Says great show. He stuck through. You've been here since the beginning. Not like Sylvester Dreadhead Banks. Who calls himself Dreadhead Banks? I mean, I don't know. What's your name, dude? I'm Jim. Oh, my name's Dreadhead. Okay, Dreadhead. Nice talking to you. I'm going to have lunch. Lance says Gabe does look like me. He's okay if he looks like me. If he starts talking like me, man. UBN says, I'm annoying with my takes, but he thinks I know football. Yeah, just like I know you know. If I wanted some golf opinion, going to UBN. We got experts in this show. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying that's what we have. All right, time to go. That is going to wrap it up for us Friday. Again, programming note. No show on Monday. I've said this multiple times, but I will get someone who will email me or text me or message me. No show on Monday. It's a company holiday. I'm going to take the company holiday. I don't like to look gift horses in the mouth. Besides, if there is a Saints hire on Monday or before then, we will have a show. There's a Saints hire on Tuesday. I'm going to have a show on Tuesday. But right now, our next scheduled show is on Wednesday. I don't know who that guest will be. We will have a guest, though. It will be fun. Reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page because Lord knows you don't want to miss any of these babies. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live, which is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 a.m. Central Time, unless it's a holiday, or unless it's a special occasion. Last comment of the day. Lance says he's watched all season from his stationary bike, and it's helped him improve his health. Thanks to the Dattitude family. Well, maybe we should go 5 hours then. You just ride the damn bike all day long. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. You can also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. You find me at bet.nola.com, and our Saints insiders. They have all the news you will want to read. You can read it on NOLA.com/Saints. Have a glorious 3-day weekend, maybe 4 or 5 day weekend if it snows. We will see you on Wednesday. Be very careful in this icy mess to come. Doesn't matter whether you believe me, agree with me or not. Come back and hate me on Wednesday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.